My name is Dexter Henry. I work here part-time at St. Francis College as a new media coordinator for athletics, so that means I handle all the video that you guys see, the live stream of the games, any video that's on our website, I handle all of that. I do a bunch of other stuff. I do a lot of freelance video work for a couple companies, ESPN Deportes, ESPN International. I also report on camera for News 12 Brooklyn. So if anybody's here from Brooklyn, you might have seen me on TV before. I do sports and news reporting. That's sort of my background. Here's how it's going to go. I'm not going to stand here and just lecture you guys the entire time because that would be boring and nobody wants to hear that. I'm going to talk a little about myself. I'm going to tell you guys some stuff. If at any point anybody wants to ask any questions, please, it's not even rude. If you want to put your hand up, you want to ask me about something, totally fine. Okay? So you guys can interrupt anytime if you want to say anything. So, I'm from Brooklyn, New York. Grew up in Brooklyn, New York, in East Flatbush. I still live in Brooklyn. I always loved sports journalism. It's kind of something I always really wanted to do. I went to college at the University of Pittsburgh where I studied communications, media. You were a communications major, so it's any other communications majors in here too? So I studied communications media. At that time, I didn't know I was gonna do anything with my own business or do anything like that. I was just like, look, trying to get out of school, like most people trying to get a job, you know, you want to be successful in that way. When I got out of school, I started in print journalism. Started writing for a small paper here in Brooklyn called the Brooklyn View. Wrote for that paper for about 9 months, and then I got laid off, so that sucked. Go. Excuse me? Yeah, that was right out of college. Maybe I was looking for work for about 4 or 5 months. I was going to school in Pittsburgh. I moved back here to Brooklyn, found that opportunity with the small paper. Wasn't making much, but it was a start. So I did that for 9 months. I got laid off because the paper had a bunch of cuts. Then I worked for CBS News Productions as a broadcast associate, and I hated that job. Which is good, and I should tell you guys need to know exactly what you like to do. What is it you hate doing? The reason I hated that job was you sat at a desk all day. That's not me. I couldn't do that, didn't want to sit at a desk all day. I like being out, doing different things, seeing different things. I got an opportunity through a friend to work for MLB.com as a game night editor, and I always considered that job one of the most important jobs I had because it taught me how to be a really fast editor, how to really be good at my craft and what I do. So that was a really important job for me in my career. Then I worked for the New York Post when they started their video department, and I was a video journalist for them, covering news and sports, reporting on camera, shooting video, editing, putting together packages. After that, I worked for another company that was aligned with the Post. And while I worked for the company, this is how Backpack Broadcasting started. While I worked for the company, they didn't allow me to do as much on-camera reporting as I wanted to do. So I was a little frustrated with that, and that's when I decided to start Backpack Broadcasting. The seed for that had been planted by a mentor of mine in college who kind of always told me, maybe you should start doing your own thing independently. And I kind of was like, yeah, whatever. But eventually I did it, and I decided to just start covering local sports here, high school sports, and I started doing that. And that's kind of was the genesis of Backpack Broadcasting. It was just me looking for a way to put myself out there as a journalist. And that's pretty much how it started. The next thing I guess you can say that happens, I continued to work for other places. That caught the eye of News 12. They saw some of my work. I saw some of those guys out in the field. They gave me an opportunity with News 12. I started working here in 2012 with the new media department. And a lot of students that I work under me with the Terry Sports Network, they started helping me do some work I do with Backpack Broadcasting. So here at St. Francis, I produce a lot of live streams of games, and I started incorporating that into my business with Backpack Broadcasting and producing live streams of games for other people. I never thought 7 years ago I would have been doing that, but I started doing that, and that became a way for me to increase my revenue. So I do broadcasts for CUNY Athletics. I handle their games. I have a championship game coming up for them in a couple weeks. I do that stuff. Now where the company has shifted into is we're into a lot of content creation. So I started a weekly podcast that I do called the Ain't Hard to Tell podcast. I also have a web series that I started last year called The Sports Walk. It's been in a couple web festivals and been submitted to a couple more festivals this year. And I have another series called Sideline Stories that I'm working on right now. Just put a piece out with Spencer Dinwiddie from the Brooklyn Nets. Finished that on Sunday. So that's kind of where I am in terms of Backpack Broadcasting and what we do. So it's about content creation. We produce live stream content, and that's essentially what the business is of what we do. Now, in terms of work and help that I get, a lot of it comes from the students that work with me here at St. Francis, and that's been a blessing. Some students have been interns for me. Other students have had paid opportunities too. So when I do live streams of games, students that work here with me, they also work with me in those games, and they're paid. I'm able to pay those workers and give those students opportunities to make money and do different things. So that feels good. Being here opened up opportunities for me to have people work with me and help me do what I do that I never thought would have happened years ago. So it was just a great opportunity for me. I like being able to create my own content. I like being able to work for myself. I still work for other people. I'm not at the point where I'm fully working for myself. But there's no better feeling than doing your own thing. That's one thing I can tell you guys. There's no better feeling than that. So if you guys are taking an entrepreneurship class here, if anybody is interested in doing that, my biggest advice I would say is start now. Start putting, if you're interested in doing any content, creating any content, whatever it is that you're doing, start now. You'll have no better time than now, like when you're in college. You don't got to worry about too many bills. You don't got a family. You don't have all that stuff to worry about. Do it now while you have the time. That was when I really honed my craft in college. I was part of a TV station at the University of Pittsburgh. So I was able to do a lot of shooting, editing, learning how to do interviews with different players, athletes, all kinds of people. And that's where I really was able to hone my skills. So I would definitely recommend that to all of you. Don't think if I'm missing anything, but does anybody have any questions? Anything anybody wants to know? Entrepreneurship. What's up, man? What's your name?
James.
James, how you doing?
I saw your website.
Yeah.
Is that all like personally funded and all that?
My website? Yeah, all personally funded. Everything, that's a good question. Everything that I've done for Backpack Broadcasting has been out of my own funds. Started everything, getting my logos done. Everything has been out of that, all my own funds. Now, obviously, as certain things have started to become profitable, I was able to take some money that I've earned from the business to put back into it. My website, that's another thing. I did that myself. I did that through Squarespace, designed a website myself. So I was on WordPress before, and then Squarespace is just much better. So I started doing that. So, yeah.
Is it scary, like you get money out of it? Like, do you like second guess if you're gonna put it back in, or if you're gonna go on vacation or something?
I think at first, yeah. At first, because at first you don't really. One of the things is I would also advise too for everyone is, if you can know somebody who's in business or somebody who's done something in business, to be a mentor for you, to talk or read as much as you can, because you can make mistakes with money where you might say, you have to understand, I'm taking some for myself, but I need to put something back in the business. So I think you have to be very disciplined in that, because that's a really good question. Like, you want to be disciplined in that aspect. You don't want to just try to keep it all for yourself, because you're still trying to build your business. So you have expenses for, sometimes with videos I'm putting out or content, boosting it, right? Like boosting it on Facebook or YouTube and trying to push the content out there. So that's actually where a lot of my money goes that I'm putting back into the business, is in terms of advertising and boosting content. Like at least right now at the state it's at. Yeah. The key things for me in terms of production was purchasing cameras. Now, some of the stuff I had on my own, when I first started Backpack Broadcasting and I just was trying to get my name out there as a reporter, I bought my own camera. I invested in that. So I remember I bought a camera for about $2,000. I had some access to some editing software, other audio equipment. So yeah, it probably cost me somewhere between $2,000 and $3,000 to really just start doing what I was doing. In terms of the live streaming, that was a little bit more of an expense, and that was something in February 2015 when I first decided to start doing it. I looked for what was the lowest professional live stream option I had for me, and I found a system that worked through a program called Wirecast, where you can use your MacBook as a switchboard, and that ran me about, with the program, getting a couple other bits of equipment it ran me about $4,000. That was an investment I put into, start the live streaming process. So, I mean, there's probably other stuff that I'm forgetting over the years, but in terms of just starting those things up, it was that. So now I'm at the point where I own a couple cameras, I have access to some other equipment. It does help that I work here and I get access to some equipment. That's definitely a huge help. So, but yeah, that was probably like the amount that I put into starting up. It's another good question too. To answer your question about the live streaming is it's not as hard as you think. Like, and we do it here for all the athletic games at St. Francis. Here at St. Francis, what we use a TriCaster, and that's kind of the switcher that allows you to control the different cameras. But as long as you have a dedicated internet connection, that's all it takes, and a platform to live stream. But there's plenty of places you can live stream to. Facebook now, YouTube. We use a player here at St. Francis through the conference called Akmai that we use. But yeah, there's tons of places you can do. It's really not that hard. Yeah. Yeah, do live streaming. Yeah, and you know why I see it here from working, and why I decided to incorporate it as part of my business is that, look, everything is online. TV is shifting, and how many of us we're watching stuff all on our phones, on our tablets. We're watching people do crazy stuff on Facebook Live and laughing at them. Everybody is connected that way, and so media is just constantly always shifting, and that was the next wave, and people are consuming. I watch so much sports like that, so yeah, I just felt like that was sort of the next wave, and I wanted to try to be a part of it. You kind of always have to try to think ahead or see where things are going in business. That's not easy though. Like, I don't want to sit here and say this easy, because it's not. You have to try to think ahead, but it's really not easy. Like I told you guys, to be completely honest, when I first was doing it, I never thought I would be doing this, or at the point where I'm doing a podcast or creating other shows. That actually wasn't the goal. So sometimes your goals change and evolve, and you have to be fluid with that as possible. That's a great question. I think the first thing is realizing that I'm not saying to shoot down your dreams. You're not coming into the game like, I'm trying to compete with ESPN, because I just don't have ESPN money, so you're not going to win in terms of that. I think what you do is you realize the audiences that you can reach. And what I did was I had a sort of a connection with covering a lot of high school sports and high school marketing. So that was a niche to me. I had a little bit of a base there. So I streamed a lot of high school and collegiate sports, because honestly, even now, that they're still avoiding that. There's still not a lot of people doing that, or doing it at a very high professional level. So I saw that was it. And the other thing I think too, like in terms of the content creation, is making content that caters a little bit more towards younger audiences. Because sometimes I feel like where I am in media now, I'm 34 years old, there's a lot of people I've worked with in media that they're very old school and very old thinking, and they're not forward thinking, and so they do things a certain way. And I think you have to think about how you're connecting with younger generations beyond how they consume media. So, I think I consume media a lot of the same way you guys consume media, which might be different from somebody who's 20 years older than me. They consume media completely different. So I think it's thinking about those things, and I think that's what could separate me from what I do from maybe what, a larger entity might do. When I first started doing backpack broadcasting, and I just was covering high school sports, people came to me to ask me to do it, because I was filming so many games and going out there and reporting. It wasn't something I even thought about. People came to me and was like, hey, how much would you do this highlight tape for me? And I did it, and that's made money for me. I don't do it as much now, but I think it was like a year ago, somebody reached out to me on LinkedIn and was just like, hey, we saw this highlight tape you did for somebody else, and there was this kid that was playing for St. Anthony's in Jersey, and I filmed him for a couple of months and then put together a tape for him that he wants to use for college recruiting. So people have reached out for me. So if you look at my website, you'll see it does say we offer videography services. So if somebody needed a video to be produced for them, I do offer that as well too. So that's something I should have mentioned to you guys besides that. So not just live streaming or covering content, or you have an event cover, I could do it too. I'll get to you. I saw he had put his hand up first.
Do you make any money off advertising on your website?
Do I make any money? Do I make any money off of advertising right now? No, actually, what I try to do with advertising is trying to get advertisers to advertise their stuff on my site or on my videos, so that can help fund what I'm doing. So It doesn't really, I'm not at the point where the advertising is super profitable yet, but it just helps fund what I'm doing. So for example, if I'm doing a live stream of an event, and there's a sponsor that's working with the event that's going on, I'll try to get them to come in because that could help fund, because sometimes the events don't have money for live streaming, but the advertisers can actually pay for your budget to do that. So sometimes, to be honest, a lot of times you might just break even and it's just allowing you to be able to produce the event, but it's fine, and that's sort of the cost of business, because you'll say, okay, I'll take that even though I'm not making a huge profit, excuse me, because I'm able to get my event out here and that exposes me to other places. Sometimes you have to weigh those decisions as well too. Good question.
Have you ever considered like making highlights from the streams itself?
Yeah, we do that. If you look on the website and you look at, so a couple years ago there's it's a summer basketball league here in New York City called Nike Pro City, where some professionals and semi-pro players play at Baruch College, and we streamed games for them for an entire summer, and after every game we did highlights. I kind of took that mold just because that's actually what I do here. So every basketball game we have, soccer, whatever, we always put highlights up after that, or interviews with players. The reason you do that is that's also very quick, digestible content that people want to see. I know I do that. I'm a big NBA fan, so I do that. I have a league pass, and if I come home late or I don't get to watch a game, I just go through all the highlights and video recaps. So that's actually been good as far as getting people to engage if they don't want to watch the whole game and that sort of stuff. So yeah, that's definitely been done too.
I was also going to ask, do you have like any sponsors?
Right now,
Or like, do you look forward to having any sponsors?
yeah. So right now for our podcast, we have a sponsor from this company called Sports Guru, who I linked with. They are it's a new app, and what they do is it's basically like Facebook for sports fans to just communicate with each other on different topics. Like let's say you have a video, you'll say something about the Yankees. You have like a minute, you can talk about the Yankees, and then he might be like, oh, I hate the Yankees. So like he sends you a video back telling you hate the Yankees. So they've been a sponsor. Trying to think of anybody else right now. Talking to a couple of sponsors, trying to get some water companies for another show I'm working on, and podcasts. So talking to a few, but just one right now that's helping us.
Do you have like an ideal one, like your future goal, like one of your future goals?
The way I think about sponsors are all in terms of what actually is I'm doing, right? So if it's with live streaming of events, because it's all different. With live streaming of events, you want whatever's tied with that event. So if it's a basketball game, you might look for like apparel companies. So we've had some talks with Nike. Well, we did have Nike as a sponsor for Nike Pro City, so I forgot to mention them too. We've had talks with Nike or Models, other apparel companies, because those are things that people watching the game would, get linked with. Any ideas of things that I want? That's what you asked. Look, if you can get in with, if you can get in bigger with beverage companies, food, liquor, those are the ones that they know a lot of people, we consume that. So those are things that can, have a lot of money. Even things like water are good, and that's something I'm actually trying to look. The other thing I'm trying to do is one of the shows I have called The Sports Walk, which is basically about people just walking and talking about different issues in sports. I'm working on trying to talk to a couple of water companies to have product placement. Not necessarily an ad, but maybe somebody holding an Aquafina. Aquafina wants to sponsor us, or Essential Water, or whatever, Poland Spring, while they're walking. So I'm always thinking about different ways I could put advertising in. And if you guys probably look at a lot of people do that. They're not getting somebody just like, hey, drink my water. It's like you're sitting at a table and you've got this water right here, and people are seeing that. So it's just brand placement's another way to do advertising that I'm looking into doing right now. That's actually a huge part of my focus. The challenge for that, guys, is when you do a lot of the business by yourself, and you also have to worry about, you're trying to manage social media, you're trying to put out content, you're trying to do advertising, it can be a lot. So sometimes getting that help, now I'm at a point where I have some help from some of my students and interns, I'm able to focus on more things like advertising. So it's getting a little easier. Yeah. I want companies to sponsor what we're doing, right? Like the content that we're creating. So if they come on as a sponsor, they're giving me money, right? But I'm putting out putting their product, either placing it or running an ad or doing that. So they're paying me to put their ad out there because there's a level of visibility I could give them. Now with all these sponsors and stuff you're talking about, when it comes to content, the biggest thing you guys should know is everybody cares about numbers. In today's social media age, if you don't have any kind of reach, nobody's going to talk to you. So you got to be able to show that. You have to have the raw data. You have to have the numbers and say, hey, I put this video out here. I've got this reach here. That's the thing. For me, what I do as a business, I'm not at the point where I can sponsor anybody yet. It's going to always be about, right now, about people being able to sponsor Backpack Broadcasting or whatever entity or thing that we're producing. And that helps, because that helps a lot with funding. Because a lot of stuff that I'm doing, somebody asked before, I think it was you asked about, are you doing this all out of your own pocket? Like, yeah, a lot of it is out of my own pocket, right? Or money that I'm earning from other things. So it'll be nice to get it to the point where it's like, hey, I have enough coming in through advertising. I don't have to take from my own to put into the business. That's kind of the goal and where we're at now. That cleared up? My interns, their responsibilities are, a lot of it is checking and maintenance of equipment, helping to set up for different events, shooting, light editing, light work, audio work. Those are basically the main responsibilities that they have, because a lot of them is just coming with me to events, shooting different things, setting up for a live stream, for example. So I did a piece the other day in Spencer Dinwiddie that we turned around really quickly, player from the Brooklyn Nets, and two of my interns came, both did it here at the school, came with me, helped set up, shot. I shot with them too, did some shooting, did some miking, with some lighting, and that was it. So sometimes as simple as that. Sometimes, like when we do live events, it's much longer because we're there early, we're really setting up. It can be a long day sometimes when we do sporting events. But, as far as in terms of just like maybe coming up or doing something like he's doing in the back where he's shooting here or we're shooting something that we're covering, not as long. But those are generally the basic duties that they have. Cool. Anybody else?
With the podcasting? Mm-hmm. Like, is there a certain amount of time that you do it a week, and does it have to be a certain length?
No, podcasting is so open, man. Like, you can do whatever you want. I just started doing my podcast in September, so I've done 17 episodes. So I just started doing it in September. I'm gonna be honest with you, I was completely new to podcasting. We actually record here. We record here in the school. I was completely new to it, but it's really not that hard. It's if you have a website and you create an RSS feed and you just upload your audio to there, you can have it on. We're on iTunes, we're on Google Play, we're on TuneIn, Stitcher, a bunch of other places. So I'm sorry, what was your exact question about podcasting?
Like, does it have to be? You have to do it a certain amount of times a week? Or
No, you can do whatever you want. Like there's podcasts to listen to where some people will go every 2 weeks. Some people I try to go once a week, every week. There's been some gaps where it hasn't happened because of my schedule, and it'll be like 10 days. But I usually record every Thursday, and I put it out on Friday. That's generally how I do it.
Like, you don't want to like play it out, right? You don't want to do it too many times a week.
Yeah, I think there's been a couple times I've put out 2 in a week because we got like a really good guest or something. But I still try to, like space it out. Like that actually could be a problem next week because there's 2 guests I want to have, and they both might be pretty close. But I think when I do the second one, I'm probably going to just not release that for a couple of days. So I'll let that sit for a bit. You don't want to oversaturate people with content. That's something I've definitely learned. Yeah. Yep.
So,
What's your name, man?
Thomas.
Tom.
So now I consider myself an entrepreneur because I have some product ideas and I want to get them out there. And
Do it, man.
I'm already an actor and I expect film production
Mm-hmm.
my stuff now later on when I have more work. So I have social media accounts, but I need them up. So
Yeah.
where should I start? What kind of should I do?
That's a great question. First of all, I will say social media building is challenging. I found that to be one of the biggest challenges with business. I think what you have to do is so Tom, whatever it is that you're doing, right? You got to constantly put it out there. You have to look for people who are doing things either like you or connected with you. Follow those people. Try to get those people to follow you back. Something that's kind of connected to what you asked about a podcast, and it kind of connects together, is something that we just did. We were thinking about how we could build up our social media following, and one of the things we did is we gave away a $50 Amazon gift card. So any of you guys could do it. If you like our Instagram page, you or subscribe to our YouTube channel, a whole bunch of different accounts. There's ways you can enter the contest, and everybody's eligible for it. So we got a huge increase on all of our accounts through doing that. The way you do it is there's a website called Gleam that runs social media. GLEAM. They run social media contests for people. Now, here's what the reason that could work for you, Tom. You could give away anything, whatever it is. People, everybody likes something free. Everybody wants something free. Yes. So, but you have to, and I get it. But if you could spare $25, right? I get it. I was in college. I understand. But if you can't spare like $25, and let's say you put out, you're giving away a free Amazon gift card, and you just have Amazon gift card giveaway, hashtag that, you're going to get people to come. Because there are literally people out there that just look online and look for hashtags for gift card giveaway challenges. Like, you trust me, I couldn't believe it, but people are really doing this. Like, they're just looking for it. So I know. So look, in a way, are you buying followers? Yeah, you are, right? The thing is, it's amazing because you're actually getting real people, and they're really going to stick around because of that giveaway. Or they might be connected. Let's say you lose some of those followers. Even if you get 10% of them, even if you get 15, 20% of those followers that stick around because they like what you're doing or what you're putting out, now you've increased supporting. Another thing I'll recommend to you, you said you're an actor, film studies?
Actor, and I'm also studying behind the scenes film.
Okay. So one of the other things that I put Backpack Broadcasting on. Has anybody heard of Patreon? Anybody know what Patreon is?
So, well, the first thing is one
Yes.
where we put a social media challenge and just find people who are like you and follow them and get them to follow you back.
I think that's the first. I think the first thing you should be focused on is that finding people that are like you, doing what you do, and or connected to what you do, or people you like, and trying to get those people to follow you back. The other thing for you is, as a actor and somebody who's trying to create films, start creating, start putting your stuff out there. That's something I said to everybody before. No matter what you're doing, like you have to. Nobody's gonna know what you are, what you're doing until you put it out there, and you can't be afraid to put it out there. It's scary to put your first thing out there because you're like, yo, is everybody gonna really think that this is good? Is everybody going to like this? Good. That's a huge step. If you're not afraid, like you've got to just put it out there. If you don't put anything out there, yeah, you know what? I think I remember my first video I put out for Backpack Broadcasting. I put it out and it had like 10 views, and I was sitting there like, oh man, nobody's liking that. But now I don't ever think about it. Over time, people will see what you're doing. If you're pushing it out, putting it the right way, you can get some of your friends to support you. But one of my biggest advice I'll tell you guys is, don't expect your friends to build and truly support your business, right? So don't bank on your friends to lift your business up. Those aren't the people that are going to lift your business up. It's a lot of other people outside that are sometimes so separated from what you do that are going to be able, that really will lift your business up, or whatever it is that you want to do. Just don't expect your friends to do. Your friends, they'll be like, yo, I like you, I like what you're doing, I'll give you a couple of likes. That doesn't mean they're always interested in exactly what you're doing, right? You're going to. Look, no matter what it is that you're doing, I don't care what it is, there's going to always be a whole bunch of other people that are interested in exactly what it is that you like, right? Just like I said, there are people who search for these Amazon gift card giveaways. I would not spend my time doing that, but there are a lot of people that do, right? So it's finding those people and connecting with them in whatever way that is. I don't know what kind of films you want to make, Tom, but whatever films it is you'd like to make, there's somebody out there that's looking for that and is going to like your style and whatever it is that you do. So do it. Don't like right now, like don't waste your time. Just do it.
Yeah. And also about people who manage like your social media account and everything,
Mm-hmm.
like how do you find those people eventually?
So I've been fortunate that one of my former student workers here, a girl named Maria Fischiller, who now she works for the New York Athletic Club as their social media manager. She's done a lot of social media managing for me for Backpack Broadcasting. She's come to different events, things I've been to, and some of my other students intern. That's another responsibility I should have said to you, that they'll do. They'll manage some social media. They'll run the Instagram account or Twitter accounts that are taking pictures, posting things as we have different events. That helps because it gets people interested in projects that are coming out. That's the best way to promote yourself. If you look, it was hard when I tried to do it by myself. I'd be at games and I'd be shooting, and then I'm like taking my camera and taking a picture or video, and it's a lot to by itself. So if you can find somebody that can help you that's interested in that, do it. Find somebody that's passionate about social media. If you find that person, because another thing is, there's a lot of jobs out there now for that. Right now, there's a lot of jobs for people who want to be social media managers. Because think about it, there's a lot of companies, and in these companies, there's a lot of older people. They don't even know what to do with social media, right? They don't know what a hashtag is. They don't use Snapchat. They don't use anything. So there's a lot of jobs for you guys when you're coming out. For all you guys who are communications majors, if that's something you want to do, there's a lot of opportunities in that space right now. So definitely check that out. Yep. What's your name? Baldi?
Yeah. Do you suggest, like, as an entrepreneur, having multiple sources of income, or like putting all your time and effort into your business?
If you got the money, put all the time and effort. If you don't, hell yeah, have multiple sources of income. I mean, there's no way I could, like, I would love to. I'm hoping to get to the point where all I can do is backpack broadcasting. Fortunately, I'm not there right now, though I think it's trending in the right direction. So that's why I told you guys about some of the work I do. I do a lot of different things. I freelance, I have my hands in a lot of different places. I think no matter what you do in life, even if you're at one job and it really pays really well, I think to move ahead, you're going to need different sources of income that you can get if you can do. What you don't want to do is burn yourself out. So if you can get passive sources of income that can help you, that's always a great thing to do. But I think you're always going to need something that's going to be able to fund your dream or what it is you're trying to do as an entrepreneur. I mean, if somebody gives me like, $1 million tomorrow, then I'm probably not working here anymore. But yeah, I'll probably put that money into backpack and do, what else do. But I think the average person doesn't have that, those funds. But the other kind of why I stress, do as much as you can while you're young and you don't have bills and you don't have car payments or any of that stuff to worry about, right? Like, now's the time to create, because there'll be no time that you'll have free like this. So if you're a creator, just do it. Yeah. You had a question? You just waving, putting your hand up.
If you could go back in time, like, would you change anything about your own company, or
Well,
like adjust anything?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, the answer is I would have done it sooner. I started it when I was, I think, 25. Oh, no, I would be that. No, I was 27 actually. I would have done it sooner. I wish I had I kind of had the idea in my head. I wish I jumped and done it sooner, and I wish I had been a little bit more creative in what it is I wanted to do as far as creating content. So I don't know if I necessarily regret that. I think you learn everything as you're supposed to in the time. I'm not a big regrets person. But that's what I tell my younger self, like, jump, take a little bit more risk here. Don't play it safe here. That's definitely what I would do if I had to go back. And I think that's why I stress so much the create now. I think because I learned that from that experience. Yeah. Yeah, sorry, I mentioned Patreon. Patreon is a site for creators. And what's really cool about it, a couple friends have put me onto this recently, what's really cool about it is allows you to monetize your content. So let's say I backpack broadcasting on Patreon, which I just did, but I haven't fully set it up. And you're like, hey, I really like the content that Dexter's producing. So much to the point that I'm willing to donate a small amount of money. Like, you can set anything at any price. It could be like $1. But what you generally do is you give your customers or consumers of your media some sort of reward, right? So there's some people who say for like $1 you can get, like, they'll give you a button or something every month. You contribute $1 every month, but you're helping to fund that person and sort of build them up. You don't get a lot of money of it, but you can get a little bit of money from your supporters. So somebody else somewhere else is like, hey, I really like the work they're doing. They might want to give and donate to it. So I think it's a good way for independent outlets, no matter what it is. There's filmmakers, there's actors, there's photographers, there's models that are getting support on there. So it's not like crowdfunding, like in a way that you're trying to raise funds, but it's kind of like a support fund community where people really like what you do, and they're like, hey, we'll give a little something to that per month. That's how you do it. I mean, every dollar adds up. So I think it's a really interesting thing that's out right now, and I think a lot of creators and entrepreneurs are going to be using it to see what the market is for what they're doing. So I think it's actually really interesting. Yeah. Yep.
Did you have any like mentors, or do you now have mentors?
What was your name again? Artie.
Yeah, and how did you find about them?
So, my mentor, the mentor that actually really inspired the name and for me to do this was my mentor in college. Ironically, he, for me in college, did the same. His name is Jamoke Davis, and he's a video producer for the Washington Wizards, but he did the same thing in college. He had the same role that I have here at St. Francis. So it's funny to actually do something that he did for me. He kind of ran a student-run media department at University of Pittsburgh, and he really kind of always was telling me you could do your own thing to get your name out there as a journalist, to create your own content. I actually saw him last summer. I was down in DC, and I saw him, and he's really happy about some of the content I created. So he's always been a mentor. He's somebody I talk to all the time. I have another friend, Court Stanley, who used to work at News 12 and does some work producing for Pix and ABC, and he's always mentors me, or he helped me when I didn't have gear to produce stuff. Hey, here's my camera and use it. You're always going to need people like that are going to say, hey, let me help you. Sometimes it's not monetarily, but it's just their time, right? Like their time in talking to you and saying to you, hey, you can do this. I'm trying to think of any other mentors. I've had mentors in the journalism industry that I've talked to. A lot of people here know Stephen A. Smith on First Take? I met Stephen A. when I was in college covering the Big East tournament, and we talked, and he always kept in touch. And one thing, I think a lot of people look at him as this really loud guy, and he could be that way on TV, but one thing he did that was really nice was when I had lost that first job I told you about, where I got laid off, I reached out to him about just some advice as a young journalist, how to bounce back from that, and he really wrote me this long email in which he just told me, like, keep your head up and stay focused. And one of the things he said in that email that always stuck out to me was, take advantage of any opportunity that you think is good that may come your way, and recognize the ones that aren't. And that always stuck out to me in that email. And I've, I've tried to follow that in my career, and even doing stuff outside of Backpack. So if I think something's a really good opportunity that'll take me to next place I want to go, that'll be it. So he's kind of been a mentor. Whenever I see him at games or stuff I'm covering, we still talk. But that's important. Having mentors, finding people that you like what they do, and talking to them. So for me, I do that a lot here at St. Francis, and I've worked here for 5 years, and being able to give back to younger people who are trying to do stuff in media or navigate their way through, it's fulfilling for me. Like, I actually like doing that because somebody did it for me. So I always feel like do that, and then for all you guys, when you get into a position where you can help somebody else younger, do that as well too. You have to. You have to. I mean, we have to help each other and give back. There's always going to be somebody else younger than you in a position looking to come up. So it's important to do. I think it's very important to do that.
I mean, like, regardless of when you start, how old you are, it's pretty much just like you receive that help and you pass on, and that creates a network of connections. And who knows, that younger person, say he has a film coming up, and he's like the next, I don't know, Scorsese, let's say.
Talking about
and
yourself?
He's like, it's just an example.
I know.
And he's like, hey, I remember this older guy, he helped me out, I'm gonna call him.
You'll be surprised. I think all you guys will see as you go through whatever it is that you do. You'll be surprised at the degrees of separation. Sometimes it's not even somebody you met 2, 3 years ago through somebody else, and that'll come back to help you in a way you'll never know. Sometimes it's just being kind, doing a favor for somebody. For example, this is a while ago, but there's a woman who maybe some of you guys know, follow baseball, name is Marley Rivera. She works for ESPN. I was covering the Jets with her, and I was coming back from practice one day. She asked me at a Jet game to shoot some video for her. She didn't have a videographer, so I shot some video for her. That landed into her giving me opportunities to shoot for ESPN Deportes, and that was a great opportunity that I never thought could happen. So now I do shoots for ESPN Deportes sometimes, and all because of one time I helped her out. And that opportunity that came months later. But you never know. And I've had some good stuff that I've done with her. I've gone to spring training. I've gone to different baseball games all across the country. So you never know how those things are going to work out. And that's why, be good to people, have good energy, and give back. You got to give back, man. Like, you got to give back. So whenever, professor asked me to come and speak here, I try to because it's important to talk to you guys. 'Cause you guys have so many questions. And I know what it was like sitting in college. I had so many questions. I didn't know what I was going to do or how it was going to work. You'll figure it out. You will. The world can be a little scary, but you're going to figure it out. But I think it's important because I think people need to see people that maybe are, hey, a little bit older than them, or they just went through this, and I think that could be inspiring. So, yeah, that's why I always think it's important to give back. I don't know if personally I made any mistakes that I could think of with backpack broadcasting. Actually, you know what? I thought of something now. I think that when I started live streaming games, my first client was CUNY Athletics, and I was live streaming games for them. And then I started doing some stuff because I wanted to get my name out. So at some point, you're doing some stuff for free. Like, I'll do this for them. But one thing I'll say to everybody is you have to know your value. You got to know that point where it's like, I can't do this work for free anymore. You can't be an intern forever. I think there were a couple times where I did work for free for people a couple times, and they took advantage of it. So that's something I learned quickly. Like, you need to know where your value is as far as what you're producing and how much quality you're producing. To get to that point, I think you have to know when you have to cut that off. And I may have went with that a little bit too long. Did it hurt me? No. No, but it made me recognize what my value was more that I could bring to the table. So I almost look at it like a positive. Like, sometimes you can learn a lot from a mistake where you did something a little bit too long. So that's one I can definitely think of. Yeah. Yep.
There's actually a concept called failing forward, and that simply means that we all fail. We all do something that's not successful, but we are always going forward and learning from that mistake. So in entrepreneurship, we all fail forward. In fact, there are a lot of venture capitalists, a lot of angel investors who actually won't give money to an entrepreneur who hasn't already had at least one failure. Why? Because I want you to have already made the mistake and learned from it on somebody else's dime and not on the money that I'm giving you to invest. So failing forward is a really interesting concept in entrepreneurship in that you learn from your mistakes, and we all make mistakes.
Yeah, you're gonna make mistakes, and you can't be afraid to fail, because I think that's actually what stops people from doing anything in the first place, right? Especially if you're in a creative space, you're afraid to fail, and you can't be afraid of that in the first place. You just have to go and do, as I've said before.
So how do you track your progress? Is it like on a daily basis, like weekly, or as far as your business and growth? How do you track it?
So right now, is because of the content that we're producing, it's really so much numbers based. So I'm always tracking the numbers. I try not to get too crazy with it, because if you look at those numbers every day, you'll almost become obsessed with oh man, this didn't move this day, this didn't move that day. So I look at it more, take some time every week and look at trends and what they're doing. So like the podcast, for example, that I'm doing. I'll take a look at how our RSS subscribers are doing every week. Is it going up and down? Is it high when we have a guest? Is it high when we have a certain kind of guest? How is it when we drop it at this time of the day as opposed to this time of day? How's our social media when we post a tease for it? So I'm always looking at that stuff, but I probably look at the social media stuff a little bit more than I do the overall numbers, because I realize that, or at least I've come to realize that is kind of what drives the traffic back to it. I was looking a lot, I told you guys about the contest we did with Gleam. I was looking at that a lot recently, and that's running through February 20th, but I've been looking at that a lot recently because the numbers have been fluctuating so much, and it's interesting to see who's coming from where, how they're doing, and that's something Gleam offers you with the contest. So you can see who are real followers and where they're coming from, demographics, age, gender. You can see any information you need. I think all that information is valuable because you need to know who you're targeting and how you can adjust either your content. Now, you're not going to appeal to everybody on everything when you're creating content. It's just not possible. But you want to, obviously, in anything in business, you want to try to cast the widest net as possible. And you can only learn that and how to adjust to that through the information. So I think checking the information is important. You just don't want to become overwhelmed with it to the point where it only becomes about the numbers, and then it takes away from what exactly you're trying to do, which is make something great or something that people can consume or use. Yeah. No, I started doing news for News 12 about almost 2 years now. I actually think that doing sports broadcasting made that easier, because I think when you do sports, there's a lot more ad-libbing in terms of the reporting and thinking a little bit quicker. So I think that actually made it easier. Does it change my passion? For where I'm like if you ask me what I prefer doing sports. Like a lot of things I create and do is, as you guys can see, you've checked out my website, it's centered around that. But I would say my overall passion is about storytelling. I love storytelling, and that's I think that's evident in the content that I create. Like I love storytelling. So no matter what it is, I'm gonna love doing it as long as it's telling a good story in that way. And I think that's kind of what fuels me, even though it doesn't give me the same spark that sports does. That passion for storytelling, which I've always had, like that kind of sparks me to do that. Yeah. I mean, this might sound corny, but I'd say it's having the opportunity to be able to give back to and help younger people. Like that's kind of what I feel is fulfilling. You could take out all the other stuff I've created or anything else I've done, and I've been able to do some cool stuff, but I think nothing feels as good as being able to, like the kids I work with here at St. Francis, and seeing some of them go on recently, some of the kids who've graduated and get jobs at different places and come back and tell me and talk to me about it. That feels great. Like nothing's better than that. There's something good about helping other people. So knowing that I've helped other people the way my mentor, Jamoke Davis, helped me, I'd say that's my biggest achievement. I'm a big believer in feeling fulfilled in what it is that you do in life, and trying to help other people. So yeah, I would say that. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I know it's probably like the corny answer. In terms of career, I got to cover 2 Super Bowls, so that was pretty cool. I covered the one, I'm forgetting the numbers right now, but the one the Broncos played the Seahawks when they had it here in New York, and then the next year I was out in Arizona when the Pats and Seahawks played, and Pete Carroll messed everything up. So yeah, that was cool. It was a lot of work, but those were, like, it's pretty cool to cover a Super Bowl. Like, it was a lot of work, but yeah, I had fun doing it. So that's a great. Okay, so a good example of that would be I guess that would have been April, May. I was thinking about doing this series, The Sports Walk. And I had the idea for it for a while, right? And I was like, I don't know if people will get it. And that's what I was trying to tell you guys, just to go and do stuff, because you'll even think about it. And I was like, how am I going to fund this, or how am I going to have the time to do this? And I ended up shooting, I think, like 60 or 70% of the episodes I just shot by myself. I just went out and shot by myself, got people, just did it all by myself. And so sometimes it takes that, where you don't necessarily have the funding, but the sacrifice that you're going to have to say, I'm going to go out and make this work. Now, in terms of trying to get funding, if you do need it, you're going to have to look for people that either would be interested in the projects that you're doing, or could fund the projects you're doing. It could be family. It could be somebody else within the industry. And I would say it doesn't hurt to ever ask. You'll be surprised at how many people want to actually help you, right? Do something that might want to help fund your dreams, because they see something that you're doing that maybe they didn't have the opportunity to do. Look, as I said to you guys before, somebody somewhere could like anything that you're doing in any kind of way, and might be willing to give money to it. So it doesn't hurt to just ask. But I think another thing that I may have left out here is being around people in whatever it is that you're creating, whatever industry it is. Find ways to network organically, be around those people, be in those spaces, be with positive-minded people.
That brought up another question. Networking,
Yeah.
You know how some of these events cost money to go, some are free?
Yeah.
What would be the appropriate ones, or what websites where you find these things would be appropriate?
I'm going to be honest with you about networking and stuff that you guys to pay for. I'm not a huge fan of, I'm not telling anybody not to do it, I'm not a huge fan of what I call created networking. I'm not a big fan of it. I think that a lot of it is, it's a lot of people that come up and say, hey, here's my card, here's my card, here's my card. You're not really ever going to hear from these people again, or they take their card. There's really no real connections organically being made. I'm not saying to anybody don't go to these events. I would say be careful about how you spend your money when you go to these events, because as Tom mentioned, some of them, they are costly and you don't have the time to do it. I think, so like if you search Eventbrite, because you're asking for some places to look, Eventbrite, you can search through there, and I found stuff like that too, and you can see some free things like that too. Meetup, it's another good one. Meetup's a great place to find like-minded people. There are a lot of groups that are created. I say look for groups. Meetup is good. Look for groups where people are coming to actually talk and truly share ideas. Because I think Meetup actually allows for more organic growth than somebody's having an event at this place and they might be charging and it's, oh, come and hand out your business cards. I'd say look for the spaces where you can truly be organic and have real connections with people and really talk about ideas if you're looking to create or make films like Tom or whatever it is that you're trying to do. So yeah. So I understand your concern there. There's so much that I've learned from working for other people. That's why I never discount that experience as being invaluable. It's extremely valuable. You learn so much about the good things people do, the bad things people do, how they run their business. I've worked for people who haven't paid on time. I've worked for people who haven't paid at all. Run from those people. Because those are things you don't want to be around or do. I've worked with people who are organized, not organized. So I've learned a lot from those situations. So there's so much you can learn from working for other people that you can take things from that and do better that you want to do with your business or whatever it is you want to do. So that's why internships are important. And good internships that will truly teach you and truly try to nurture you in what it is that you're trying to do. There's so much you can take for it. So just absorb it like a sponge and utilize that information however you feel is the best way to. That's it. Well, I want to thank you guys for giving me time. A lot of you asked really, really good questions. A lot of you guys were really attentive, so thank you. Wish all of you guys the best of luck. You can check out the website, backpackbroadcasting.com. You guys can follow me. My email is also on there. If anybody wants to email me, that is completely fine. I will get back to you. I'm sure a lot of you may have other questions or things that you want to do. But check out the content. Let me know. Always looking for feedback. So, yeah, thanks again, guys. Really appreciate it.